Before you decide this is just another scary story, understand one thing. Stories are supposed to end. This doesn't. Most fear doesn't begin with screams or blood or shadows in the dark. It starts with a quiet thought you don't remember thinking before. I've felt this before, haven't I? That feeling, like déjà vu mixed with dread, is where this begins. Far outside western Ohio, past towns that barely make the news and cornfields so flat they erase depth perception, there's a structure that doesn't appear on updated maps. Not because it collapsed, not because it burned down, but because someone decided it was easier to pretend it never existed. Locals never point at it directly. They don't warn you either. They mention it sideways. That concrete place, the old research facility where the sirens used to test. No one ever calls it abandoned because nothing ever left.
The rules. People who worked there signed paperwork on their first day. Not legal forms, behavioral compliance sheets. Rules without explanations. If you hear footsteps matching your own, you stop walking immediately. If a voice uses your childhood nickname, you do not respond. At exactly 3:17 a.m., every mirror must be covered. If you forget, you are not allowed to check your reflection. Nobody ever asked why. At night, the building emitted a low electrical hum, not loud, not obvious, but once you noticed it, you couldn't stop feeling it. Not hearing it, feeling it. At 3:16 a.m., everything felt normal. At 3:18 a.m., everything felt normal. But no one, not one person, could ever remember 3:17. Michael Reyes. The first real anomaly came from security footage. Michael Reyes, mid-30s, former Army, night shift security. On camera, he was relaxed, talking to himself, complaining about bad vending machine coffee, joking about grabbing pancakes after his shift. At 3:16, he froze mid-sentence, not scared, confused. At 3:17, he leaned closer to the camera and whispered, "That's not how I stand." The camera zoomed in on its own. Behind him, his shadow wasn't aligned. It was facing the camera. After that night, shadows inside the building began lagging, half a second behind, sometimes more, sometimes not at all. One technician joked that the building was buffering. They found him hours later. He was scraping at the concrete wall with shredded fingernails, trying to peel his shadow off. One hand covered in blood, the other perfectly clean. Emily Carter. A nurse named Emily Carter forgot to cover a mirror one night. She entered the restroom at 3:19 a.m. Her reflection looked normal. Same face, same posture. Then it blinked. 2 seconds late. Emily didn't scream. She smiled. Her reflection didn't. Later, she said it looked tired, like it had been wearing her all night. She never left after that. The overwrite. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, it was already familiar. And familiar things are the hardest to fear. The building didn't change suddenly, it adjusted. People began finding their names written where they shouldn't be, inside locked drawers, on fogged glass, in the margins of reports they didn't remember touching, always in handwriting that looked almost like theirs. Almost. A janitor discovered his full name lightly etched into his forearm. No pain, no blood, no memory. That broke him. Voices began using names too, but wrong. Wrong rhythm, wrong emphasis, like pronunciation learned from reading, not listening. At exactly 3:17, audio logs captured children laughing. There were no children in the facility. There never had been. When engineers slowed the audio down, the laughter wasn't joyful. It was rehearsal. Something practicing how happiness was supposed to sound. Emily stopped flinching, stopped blinking normally. She stared at people's mouths while they spoke. Sometimes she answered questions before they were finished. When someone finally asked her if she still felt like herself, she paused and replied, "Which one?" That's when they understood. This wasn't possession, it was overwrite. Memories weren't erased, they were reassigned. Emotions connected to lives never lived. The building didn't want bodies, it wanted continuity. Lockdown. They developed tests, breathing tests. 2 people sat back to back. If their breathing synced naturally, both were removed. Humans don't sync breathing without effort. Something else does. Eventually, entire rooms began breathing together. When lockdown was announced, nobody protested. Doors sealed, concrete shifted, stairwells looped. One engineer walked down 3 flights of stairs and arrived behind himself. He didn't scream, he apologized. By then, the building wasn't reacting anymore. It was anticipating.
The room. The worst part wasn't fear. It was comfort. People stopped feeling tired, stopped doubting themselves. At 3:17, thoughts became clearer, decisions easier. One night, a room appeared at the center of the building. No handles, no markings. It opened anyway. Inside wasn't light or machinery. It was absence. The first person who entered never returned, and nobody panicked. Everyone just felt lighter, as if something heavy had been set down. One by one, people followed. Emily was last. She turned once before entering. Her shadow was perfect again. When she stepped forward, it stayed behind. She smiled. The door closed without a sound. After. Months later, the site was officially erased. Maps updated, records wiped. But sometimes, driving through Ohio, GPS systems hesitate. Not blank, just a message. You've arrived. The building is always there, waiting. People who go inside don't always disappear. Some come back. And every single one of them says the same thing. It's easier there. So if tonight your room feels quieter than usual, if the walls feel slightly closer, don't check the time at 3:17. And if you hear your name spoken perfectly, calmly, like it's always known you, don't answer. Because this was never meant to be a story. It was meant to be remembered.